to protect the armed forces. Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Good evening. In a moment, headliners, but first let's bring you up to date with the latest news headlines. And the top story on GB News tonight. The man who murdered Olivia Pratt-Korbel in Liverpool was sentenced today to life in prison. He's to serve a minimum term of 42 years. Thomas Cashman shot the 9-year-old girl as he chased a convicted drug dealer into her home in August last year. The 34-year-old refused to appear in the dock to hear victim impact statements or his sentencing. Outside the court, the schoolgirl's mother, Cheryl Korbel, said her family's already started their life sentence, having to spend the rest of their lives without Olivia.
Liv was the light of our lives, a sassy, chatty girl who never ran out of energy. She was a character. She was my baby, and she had amazing qualities and knew what she wanted in life. Everyone adored her. She was the baby of our family and my little love, my shadow. Now everything we do and everywhere we go is a constant reminder that she is not there with us. All that promise for her future so cruelly taken away.
Well, also in the news today, the Prime Minister has announced a new task force to crack down on grooming gangs. Rishi Sunak said the measures aim to prevent victims and whistleblowers from being ignored by authorities because of cultural sensitivities or political correctness. It's after the Home Secretary singled out British Pakistani men as a particular concern. Speaking exclusively to GB News, Suella Braverman said her comments on Pakistani men were based on reviews and reports.
It's not racist to tell the truth about what has been going on here in Rochdale or in Rotherham or in Telford. Local reviews and reports have confirmed that the grooming gangs scandal that has gone on here has been perpetrated by largely British Pakistani men. Now, it's important not to demonise a whole community, and the vast majority of British Pakistanis are law-abiding and straightforward people.
Tributes have been paid tonight to the Conservative MP and former Chancellor Nigel Lawson after his death at the age of 91. The leading Brexiteer served in Margaret Thatcher's government and sat in the House of Lords until his retirement in December. He's survived by his 7 children, including the TV cook and author Nigella Lawson. Rishi Sunak has called him a transformational Chancellor and an inspiration. And lastly tonight, Donald Trump has arrived at Trump Tower in New York City. He's due to appear in court tomorrow in Manhattan and face criminal charges. The former US president has been indicted in relation to alleged hush money payments to the adult film star Stormy Daniels before his election campaign in 2016. Mr. Trump will be arraigned, fingerprinted and photographed in the court in Manhattan tomorrow. His lawyer, though, says he will enter a not guilty plea. He's also due to speak tomorrow evening in Florida. We'll have coverage of that here on GB News. On TV, online, DAB+ radio and on the TuneIn app. This is GB News, the People's Channel. Time for headliners.
Hello, welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. Helping me through Tuesday's top news stories, we have the most well-read comedians in the country, Leo Kearse and Steve N. Allen.
And that's not saying much, is it?
No. But also, I mean, well-read in the last couple of hours. Yeah. Anyway, you've caught up a bit. Anyway, let's crack on with our front pages. The Times kick us off. Almost half of voters say Starmer still lacks vision. They could have gone with over half say he doesn't. iPaper, UK summer holidays hit by passport delays after new strikes. The Guardian revealed CBI in turmoil following new claims of sexual misconduct, and a photograph there of the recently arraigned Donald Trump. Sun, Phil, I no longer have a brother. Daily Express have 42 years life for Olivia's life. And finally, the Daily Star, Queen's corgis are no longer grieving fickle dogs. Those were your front pages. So, kicking off with the Sun, Leo, unusually.
Yeah, so they have a picture of Maya dating Leo there.
Nice.
Although I wasn't going to reveal it, but she's gone straight to the Sun. But the main story, I hope my wife's okay with it. The main story is
that her name, your wife?
Maya.
Maya.
No, my wife's got a different name.
Oh.
No, Maya. It's a little joke.
About
Maya
Leo.
It says Maya dating Leo.
Oh,
it's not
you!
me.
I'm so sorry.
not
That's
me.
not a good sign for
It's
the next
Leonardo.
hour, is it? It's you. You're the joke, Leo.
It's Leonardo DiCaprio she's dating.
Understand.
Just a little joke before we talk about Philip
I thought she
Schofield.
was jealous of Leonardo DiCaprio. I didn't understand she might be jealous of you,
Right.
having been married to you for over a
Have
year
you two
now.
ever met?
I know.
It feels like you don't even know his name yet.
Crack on with the main story.
Yeah, I might do that. Just a little joke before we talk about Philip Schofield's paedophile brother. So, Philip Schofield, his brother has been revealed and has been sentenced as a paedophile who blackmailed a teen into sex acts. Philip said after the verdict was announced, my overwhelming concern is and has always been for the well-being of the victim and his family. But it was reported in December 2021. According to Philip's testimony, Philip says his brother phoned him in an extreme state of agitation in September 2021 and revealed these crimes to him.
Yeah.
So there's a gap of 3 months there where the overwhelming concern wasn't for the victim's family. It was for something else. I don't know what. Maybe it was all going to get swept under the carpet.
So are you saying, just so I'm clear, are you saying that Philip Schofield himself could have come forward with evidence and alerted the police more at this point?
If he was told in September 2021, which he says he was, then he could have come forward to the police before December 2021 when these crimes were announced.
But that's when they were announced. You don't think that there's possibly something going on under...
No, when these... so they say the allegations were reported in December 2021.
Yeah. Well, we should be very cautious about what we might infer from that gap.
I'm not inferring anything. I'm just reading out what it says in The Sun.
What do you think, Steve?
Well, the closest attempt to try and find something that won't get us sued, but is at least wry, is the bit when we read the transcript of Philip Schofield. There's a bit where he says to his brother, "Tell me whatever it is you want to tell me. There's nothing you can say that will make me hate you."
Yeah,
he was wrong about that, wasn't he?
He was wrong.
Yeah.
And what about saying I no longer have a brother? I don't want to predate on his distress, but that's an odd construction, isn't it? He does have a brother, and his brother has committed a terrible crime, and I don't think you can just retrospectively detach your genetic relationship like that.
No, but it's just disowning, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's that dramatic thing that, like a bigoted father would do in the 70s. Like,
you're no son of mine! Yeah. I don't know. I don't like it, personally. I don't like it, but then I'm an only child, so I suppose it'll never fall to me.
And also the way things are going with, drag queens teaching children about sex acts, we don't know. In 5 years' time, is Philip Schofield going to be seen as paedophobic?
Well, I suppose there is that. I mean, perhaps part of his thinking, God knows, pure speculation, but perhaps part of his thinking is that he needs particularly to try hard to distance himself from any such suggestion,
right?
Because he may still have there may still be a part of the audience that he has on. What's it called This Morning, isn't it? His big show, who were slightly rocked by his own revelations, and in their mind, there's a slippery slope from. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
When he came out as gay, what I'm saying is there's still probably part of the population that think, oh, well, what's next? What's coming now? And in fact, it will turn out that Philip is the good one in the family. Well, I don't know. I still think it's a slightly odd way of speaking about it. But anyway,
are you jealous as an only child that he's trying to nick your territory, that he's now trying to identify as an only child?
Let's have a look at The Guardian, Steve.
It's not much better when we start off with these CBI in turmoil due to these sexual misconduct claims. I mean, grisly details. There's almost two sides of it. There's the actual claims of the sexual misconduct and there's the culture, both of which are under scrutiny. It's difficult to know what to say other than it looks bad at the moment. I guess we'll find out more. The reason we're talking about the Guardian front page, though, is because this picture, Donald Trump's back in the news. People are shocked by the news that he paid a woman after sex.
Yeah. Well, there is that old saying, which I always thought was quite insightful, about you don't pay a prostitute to have sex, you pay her to go away afterwards.
Oh, really?
That's one of those kind of slightly boys' club. But there's a bit of truth to that, actually, generally speaking. That
sounds like something you'd hear at the CBI.
Yeah, I think it is,
But this is, it is historic. He's the first president to have to go through this.
Yeah.
At least the first, he'll end up being the second or third.
Despite the fact that Bill Clinton did definitely pay women to keep quiet afterwards.
Well, yeah.
But he didn't do it out of campaign funds or something. That's the thing, isn't it? It's a financial technicality.
Paula Jones was paid $850,000 by Bill Clinton to be quiet.
And that's when a dollar was worth something.
Yeah. Accounting for inflation, that'd be like, what, about $7 trillion?
It certainly isn't.
And bear in mind that Paula Jones was much uglier than Stormy Daniels.
The allegations that were made against John F. Kennedy during the, obviously tragically truncated term he managed to serve, but, Marilyn was an obvious example, but there were many other definite cases. I mean, by all accounts, he was having a different prostitute shipped to his room every other day.
Yeah.
It was an extraordinarily important part of his masculine self-image, according to Christopher Hitchens.
In his defence, he was paying to have them shipped away afterwards.
There we go.
I believe that's how it works.
This is always what will bring down Trump, though, isn't it? It's always going to be some sort of lazy financial irregularity rather than the actual scandal.
But this could actually boost him. This is actually going to inspire his base and also going to inspire other people who might have been on the fence, because it looks like political persecution. And I think it is political persecution. This could backfire horribly. This is an untested defence. It's a misdemeanour, but they're saying they can make it into a federal charge somehow.
A felony, that's the big deal, isn't it? And if it falls, if they don't make it over that fence, then it is going to count against them.
Which all previous attempts have failed.
Absolutely, he is Teflon, despite the fact that you wouldn't think that to look at him. But I like the idea they're going to fingerprint him. I just wonder whether they get those fingers up and over the ledge. Anyway, we've got the Times now, Leo.
So almost half of voters say that Starmer still lacks vision. I don't know what the other half are smoking. But Keir Starmer says, I will be ruthless in power, which is always a reassuring thing from a left-wing politician. You know, that's never gone wrong. I mean, Stalin, everybody remembers how great he was.
Pile the skulls 1,000 feet high.
But he says, according to these polls, a fifth of the public say that Keir Starmer is a great or good party leader. However, almost half of Britons believe he hasn't set out a clear vision. And they're right. I mean, Keir Starmer flip-flops and everything. He's not sure what a woman is. He'll change his mind on what a woman is week to week, depending on what's the most popular opinion.
But even in this article, he points out himself he's not sent out that vision yet. He had 3 phases, and the phase that we're moving into is the if not them, why us? Because at the moment, this poll, it's asking the question, what do you think of Sir Keir Starmer, which is almost the wrong question. That's not how they'll end up winning the election. It's because of what do you think about the Tories.
The government always lose rather than the opposition win. That's true. And also, I would say, we do seem to be living currently, and this is not a huge long-term trend, but currently in a period where people are quite comfortable with technocrats. After the choppy water of the last few years, technocrats generally don't have vision. They just keep... There's the managerial class. You know, people, your choice next is going to be between a banker and a lawyer. There are no great Borises or Jeremys with, big flag-waving...
I think across Europe we're seeing voters reject the sort of technocratic centre-left governments. Finland yesterday, the government was thrown out, and it looks like we're going to have quite a right-wing coalition government in its place.
Oh, that'll be interesting. A right-wing Aryan government. That's a bit...
Never backfired before.
That's rejecting a technocrat after having one for a while. It's always a small slice. It's the palate cleanser of a boring government after characters. And he is
going to have to come up with something, though, that I think has a little flavour to it after a year from now, because if Sunak continues on the kind of steady trajectory he's having now, the memories of the chaos of the last sort of year will start to fade.
Yeah.
And... He does have rather an unfortunately uninspiring manner. I'm not saying Sunak, he is, equally... there's definitely a kind of LARPing Blairite kind of thing with him, but he's more convincingly New Labour, Sunak, than Starmer is, isn't he? Funny days. The Daily Star to finish off this section.
Queen's corgis are no longer grieving. Thank heavens we got this news. So the Queen's devoted corgis are no longer... I love the way that it phrases this, so I'm reading it out word for word. Mourning for Her Madge is the front page, and is that the respectful way of saying it? I'm not quite sure the way you do it. But the revelations made by the Duchess of York, who said, I guess they're fine because they're dogs.
The Duchess of York, who is now looking after the little mites. That's how the Star described corgis. Corgis are quite hefty. They're not little mites. If one of those treads on your blood blister, you know about it.
To Prince Andrew.
Ah, that's probably true, isn't it? Well, anyway, we're pleased to see that the corgis are considered a legitimate member of the household after all the recent scandals. That's it for part one. Join us after the break for Labour causing controversy, the Conservatives causing controversy, and the SNP causing controversy. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like.
Absolutely.
On Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway, Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm your host, Simon Evans. With me, two excellent comedians, Leo Kearse, Steve N. Allen. They are both fully briefed. We're ready to go into the papers. The Times now, Leo, and Keir Starmer is to visit Albania to demonstrate he knows what to do about the small boats crisis. I can see a problem there.
Yeah, well, how's he going to get there on one of the boats that they've left? He says, Keir Starmer says he'll do a better job on migrants. He's going to visit Albania and France in an effort to show he would do a better job of stopping the small boats than Rishi Sunak. He says he wants to stop the boats, smash the gangs, sort out their turns and clear up the utter mess, which is quite, it's interesting. That's quite a right-wing position for a leader of the Labour Party to take. And it shows how he's trying to appeal, be everyone to everything to everyone. And he even says, he's been asked, Lisa Nandy, the shadow levelling up secretary, declined to say whether Labour would keep the Rwanda deportation deal, because obviously it's a key part of stopping the small boats coming across the channel. Yeah. And we've seen, for example, when Joe Biden got in America, he actually kept a lot of the methods that Trump
the cages on the southern border and stuff. I mean, I think some of those. It's really interesting how the press report these things, because a lot of those actually preceded Trump as well. well.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these things.
I think as soon as the cage was invented, we were like, how many kids can we stuff in this thing?
But you're right. His rhetoric there is not that distinguishable from Braverman, and I mean the Rwanda protocol. Those ideas have been portrayed as being cartoonishly evil by the press, and yet Labour won't disavow even those.
I saw the interview when she was failing to answer that question, and it did come across more like I'm not making policy here and now.
Okay.
Because that's the gift of being the opposition. You don't have to do the detail until you get closer, and it's a relatively low bar that Sir Keir Starmer's looking at here, doing better than Rishi Sunak at stopping the boats. Well, this is the problem with the Tories. They've had a long while and they've not done very well at stopping the small boats.
No, but Rishi hasn't had a long while, and they've been stymied by Labour, and they've been stymied by European politicians as well.
But also the big thing is this 1% processing. If you're only processing 1% of the people that you need to process, that's why your hotels are full, that's why we have the issues about RAF bases being used. Spend all the money on the other things that get headlines, getting your backlog sorted, and then do your other plans. If you do it that way, at least you have your hotels free.
Well, they've got them on the Victorian hulks moored off the Kentish coast now, haven't they, instead of the hotel, so that's a good start, I think.
Yeah.
I seem to remember Norman Wisdom was huge in Albania. Do you remember that?
Yeah, they've got statues.
I can't help feeling we're not using our soft power significantly enough. There must be some way we can revive him through AI and have him sort of pleading with, don't come, it's a terrible chaotic...
This is the quality of comedy you'll have if you come.
Exactly. Guardian now, Steve. Suella Braverman is accused of using dog whistle racism, which is presumably why I haven't been able to hear it. But perhaps you have, I don't know.
Well, number 10 then denies it. Here's how I think I can break this story down. Suella wrong, Rishi Sunak right in the way that they've talked about this. Rishi says that you shouldn't let political correctness stop you in reporting a crime. Brilliant. I mean, surely that's what everyone should agree on. If you don't agree on that, that's a stickier wicket. Suella Braverman said the issue is that almost all members of such gangs were British Pakistani. What do you do with that data? Do you suspect all British Pakistani? No. And that's the problem, that if people infer that from what you've just said, it's not as good as saying the race doesn't matter when it comes to reporting people. So you shouldn't let political correctness stop you. What have I said that's wrong?
No, I think you've got that right. And I think the interesting thing with Suella Braverman is I suspect she is not that great at forming whole paragraphs on the hoof. Do you get that feeling with her sometimes when she's on television? She is. I think her policies and her intentions are right, but I do think she is capable of setting snares for herself. And I am, broadly speaking, in her camp. I do think these things need to be acknowledged clear-sightedly. I do think the media, the social services, the police, the whole infrastructure, almost everyone was to blame for hoping that this wouldn't be as divisive and potentially inflammatory as it is. But she hasn't been the best person at framing that.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I think we're focusing on one comment by Suella Braverman, when in fact the issue is that she's correct. These crimes were perpetrated by a particular group in society, a particular demographic.
That depends what you mean by these crimes, because I mean,
grooming
yes,
gangs.
the specific grooming gangs that we're talking about, but that's a kind of slightly circular argument. You're saying the Pakistani grooming gangs were overwhelmingly formed of men either from or second generation from mostly northwest Pakistan, and there is obviously a story there, but it is part of a larger story in which you try and attack. I mean, our very own Charlie Peters, wasn't it, wrote a very good thread today on Twitter, breaking the statistics down, and you absolutely can make a case that Pakistani men are overrepresented in this crime. I mean,
it's a particular sect. It's quite within the demographic is a smaller demographic, and I know Muslim men from the Middle East who are furious that they're being tarred with the same association. But what the Guardian consistently does is misrepresent the data to deny and obfuscate that there was an actual problem and there was a overrepresentation in this particular demographic. And you only need to look at the mugshots to see that Suella Braverman was right.
Oh, I absolutely agree, and she's right to raise it, and she's right to tackle it, and she's right to say that we should absolutely not allow fears of accusations, hinder us. I just think she could possibly have tightened up her language a little bit.
Well, no, that's the thing. That's what Rishi said. That's why I think Suella wrong, Rishi right on this, because at least he said the words in the right order that gets the right point across.
OK, Scotch news now, Leo, and an SNP MSP is quick to take offence at the offer of a hedge trim. Right. There's a good little tip for you.
So an SNP politician had an innocent woman investigated for hate crime over a mix-up over a bikini wax. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I mean, Scotland is a banana republic. This is Karen Adam, who's apparently she was a Mormon. She's an interesting character.
Wow.
But she complained of being a victim of abuse after receiving an unsolicited booking for an intimate salon appointment. She caused an innocent woman to be investigated for hate crime, and Kate had supported Sturgeon's gender self-ID, and she said that opponents of the gender self-ID laws had booked her in for a malicious bikini wax.
A malicious Brazilian.
It was, a malicious Brazilian, a bikini eyebrow and lip wax. So that does sound pretty malicious. That is somebody saying, by the way, you're a gorilla.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We need to take a flamethrower.
And also, it's going to be painful.
But Humza Yousaf, interestingly, the new leader of the SNP, the replacement for Sturgeon, he's done similar things. He tried to sue a nursery that refused to take his children.
Yeah. Well, it turned out, of course, it was just an administrative error.
Yeah.
She had been accidentally confused with somebody with a similar name and offered a booking.
And that's who I feel sorry for in this, by the way.
Yes.
Because whoever that person would be then investigated by the police and had their genuine waxing cancelled. So for them, I guess things got pretty hairy.
I would have, if Karen Adams should have gone along and just had that waxing and taken it on the chin.
And the lip. Yeah. But false accusations of hate crime should be a hate crime.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a bit like, I always think, if you take a dive in football, you know, and the referee misses it, but afterwards you look back afterwards and he's given a free kick and you dived, that should be a retrospective yellow. And I think that sort of thing should happen with hate crimes as well. Very good call. The Telegraph now, Steve, will report on a pharmacist who is clearly not up to speed with our current blasphemy laws.
Well, so he says that the NHS stops people looking after themselves, says that they're lazy. And the headline makes you think of lazy as in sitting around food down, you're watching Homes Under the Hammer. Let's ruin this story. It's not that. He's saying that people are too lazy to look after their own health because they know the NHS is there. But also, let's remember, this is not a study. This is not even a survey. This is the opinion of someone who owns some pharmacy. Not even a doctor. Someone who owns some
A lot of pharmacists, mind you. And it's interesting. I mean, he says, I don't know whether he's experienced internationally. His name is Sam Patel, and he is a director of Day Lewis Pharmacy, who have 260 outlets in the UK. So he is pretty experienced at you know, prescriptions, I guess. His point is that if you know you can get free medicines for whatever goes wrong, you don't look after your health. I don't know that if you can look at America, which is easily the obvious counterexample, where health could not be more expensive. They don't necessarily seem to bear that out, do they?
Yeah, but I agree with them anyway.
Yeah, I kind of have a feeling there should... I don't know, I'm very torn on this, because on the one hand, I think, yes, people should look after their health, and on the other hand, I despise nanny state interventions, you know, what they call preventative medicine, posters up in the doctors telling you to eat more fruit and cut down. It's like, I don't know where, you know what I mean? I'm a hypocrite, really, I suppose. I just wish people were instinctively better at... Jordan Peterson had a great bit, sorry, I know I'm going on. Jordan Peterson had a great bit in his 12 Rules for Life. He said, take responsibility for yourself as if you were somebody else that you were looking after. People stop their medication after a couple of days, or if the symptoms go away and they've been told you must stay on this for 2 weeks, but after 2 or 3 days it dies down and they stop and it flares up again. He said if you had a dog that you were put on medication, you would make sure it took its medicine every day, but people to themselves don't do it.
I wouldn't. I'd just kill the dog.
Just to finally undermine this guy, his example, to prove his point, is that many of us have read free newspapers on the tubes and we don't mind that they're not as good as paid-for one. And somehow he extrapolates from that the subconscious psychology of an entire nation.
So the NHS is like the Metro.
Yes, exactly. I think you're right. It's not entirely a coherent position, and it feels to me like he was just talking, again, like... what do they call it? Spitballing a little bit. And, anyway, good luck to him. He's doing well in the biz. Up and away now, Leo. The Mail has the latest on China's beautiful balloon.
So the Chinese spy balloon that flew across America apparently did gather intelligence from sensitive US military sites before it was shot down. The intel collected was mostly from electronic signals rather than images, according to officials. I don't know if they get the GBNews YouTube feed. I don't know. I mean, you can't... my car doesn't pick up LBC. I don't know how this thing, like 60,000 feet up, can get...
What I couldn't believe is they shot this thing down with Sidewinder missiles travelling at 1,900 miles per hour. You don't need to bring down a balloon. They could have done it with a bow and arrow.
Well,
how much have they wasted on that?
The issue with this balloon is it was flying above the level that jet planes can normally fly at.
Right.
And also missiles fired at it just go through it. They've tried shooting down balloons before, and the pressure differential on one of these balloons is very, very slight, so they take a long time to deflate.
Yeah, no, and they're extraordinary things, aren't they? When they go and they go, ooh, and they expand in the... I think you should have sent Arnie up with a flamethrower. That would have been the obvious thing to do, wouldn't it? Tom Cruise climbing on the wing of the F-18. Coming up after the break, we have English football, testosterone and divorce. Sounds like an average Saturday night. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. Times now, Steve, and a sign of them, divorce rate hit a 10-year high.
Yeah, I mean, this is a simple story. Divorce rates are up. Good, because if you don't want to be with that person, get out of there. In part, they blame it because of financial strains. I'm not incredibly sure about that. I mean, effectively, I can't afford another mortgage, so the missus is fine for a while. So I'm not sure. There are reasons to get out of a marriage or stay in it if you don't have a lot of money, I suppose. It's also probably more linked to the fact that now the no-fault divorce laws have come through. People would have waited. So there'll be this extra bit. And the numbers aren't massive. They're about 120,000, but early 2000s, they were 170,000. So divorce is not high.
It's actually swung in the last year or so from being a low to a high, and yet, as you say, the numbers aren't that much. So actually, it moves within a fairly narrow band.
And I think it was a low before because people were thinking, let's not do it now, so we have to come up with a fault, a pretend fault. Let's wait until the laws have changed.
You can't do it in lockdown because you couldn't move house. You couldn't, you step outside, you get arrested, thrown back through the window. It's
a funny thing. In lockdown, must have caused a lot of tension. That as soon as there was the opportunity to get away from it, but actually while you're there and locked in, you've got to. I think they overthink it as well. These things. I mean, somebody was saying he thinks that possibly divorce rates go up at certain times in the economic cycle because people think that their house, they can get it valued at a certain level and then it'll be worth more once it's just theirs.
Yeah.
Or they have a business that they're going to have to split with the wife, but if it's valued at 5 million and then they split it and then it surges up. I'm like, do people really think in those terms about when to get divorced? If you want to get divorced, you get divorced, don't you?
If that were true, Martin Lewis should be giving us that advice. He's not mentioned it.
Divorce as a start-up.
Yeah.
Anyway, good luck to you if you're starting out again. One possible cure for couples heading for divorce in the Times, Leo, and that's a patch that restores the ladies' sex drive.
Yes, a testosterone patch for women in the menopause is a life changer and is going to be available soon in the UK. So testosterone is an essential hormone for women as well as Hollywood beefcakes, and its production drops heavily after the menopause. So you can already get estrogen and progesterone hormones as patches that you just stick on your arm. So now they're gonna provide it as a patch, testosterone as a patch. You know, up until now, women have been using these gels which provide an irregular supply. They're not designed for menopausal women. And Britain apparently is going to be one of the first countries in the world to get access to these patches. So we're going to get a lot of horny middle-aged women saying they're delighted about that.
Middle-aged women. It's going to turn GB News around, isn't it? I think good luck to them. I mean, I would say I'm sure these things will get tested, but broadly speaking, if you can extend the period during which there's something to live for, that doesn't seem a bad thing, does it?
I imagine testosterone must have been tested a lot, just because science tends to test on men first because it's easier to do the results because you have something else.
That's how it got its name.
I suppose I suppose it's the patch rather than the delivery system rather than the hormone itself definitely is. I think that is the funny thing though, isn't it? That testosterone is a highly contentious subject. There are quite a few best-selling books, and some of them have won science prizes and so on, about just how important it is in determining human behaviour. And they do tend to focus on whether or not it drives male supremacy. You know, that's the big question.
Right.
Have all the top jobs in government and empire building and flying jets and so on all been, you know, I'm sorry, ladies, we all know about upper body strength, why you can't be a female.
Well, explains Nicola Sturgeon.
Yeah. Talking of which, the Waffen-SS, the Lionesses now, Steve, in The Guardian.
Yeah, there's been a change of the kit that they wear. I'm not a football expert, so I might get the wrong words, but I believe kit, costume, one of those. They change in the shorts because they don't want the white shorts because you might be able to see blood when they have a period. I mean, surely no one complains about this. If you're sat at home going, no, I want to see that, you're a bigger problem than any other.
I can't understand why it's even a news story. I mean, I just find it quite bizarre. I presume they have deliberately used this. I mean, I think they must have issued this as a press release.
No, this should obviously be. I've seen this. They don't need blue shorts. I've seen tampon adverts. You can roller skate in white leggings all day long.
But the trouble with roller skating is the legs stay fairly close together.
I've seen them.
Football, you might have to do a bicycle kick.
I've seen them climbing ladders.
Yeah.
So every single tampon.
I cannot understand. I think I would have them dressed in all black kit. That would be definitely the most effective with the red lions.
Although, as the person who does all the laundry at home, because it's chemistry, I'm getting stuck in with that. Give me some oxy action. But if you're going to put a stain on anything, do it on something that's white, because you can bleach it. But maybe they're not. Maybe this is less of a laundry concern for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Of a lot of patches I've noticed bleached on my. Guardian now, Leo. Finally, our first trans story of the night. We're slipping, but here it is.
So, Swim England announces a transgender policy with open and female categories. So, instead of banning transgender people from the female swimming events, as World Swimming has done, Swim England, which is the sort of English version of World Swimming, is just creating this sort of open category, which is going to be entertaining to watch.
Well, do you know what? I may be wrong, because this is like something I've never actually checked with the original sources, but I think that's how swimming is always organised. You know, you have breaststroke and butterfly and what we call front crawl, but it's actually called freestyle in the Olympics, isn't it? Meaning you can adopt any stroke you like.
Oh, but this is...
But everyone does adopt front crawl because it's the fastest.
Right.
In the same thing, they're going to have a bit like breaststroke, you're restricted to breaststroke, women, you're restricted to women, and then the open category, anyone can compete, including not only trans women, but women just regular, biological women,
And
if they fancy it.
Presumably men as well.
Yeah.
Anybody.
Dolphins.
But it does make you think, if you have an open category, if they just had wider pools, they could just get it done in one race. And just see who comes first out of the other categories in the same race. We're owned by teams.
Well, this is why I like the open water swimming in a triathlon. It's a much more exciting kind of, because it's like the beginning of the Grand National or something. It's just this huge, seething, bubbling mess of humanity, and one or two people make it to the other side. And afterwards they have to go and count them all up and send in the frogmen. Anyway, Telegraph now, Steve. This should be right in your wheelhouse, or car. As they're sometimes called.
Yeah, I didn't realise you're that old-fashioned. I still call them the wheelhouse.
The wheelhouse.
Yes. Electric cars, some are being written off apparently after minor bumps because they're difficult to repair.
Yeah.
And the Telegraph, so they're writing it up as, electric cars, we don't need them. Splendid. Whereas the actual story should be, we need to be better at repairing them. I guess they're quite new technologies.
Well, in particular, it's not the whole car, is it? It is the battery. It's the obvious part of it. And they say something quite minor, like mounting a curb at speed can dislodge the thing, which obviously is an issue, but should be addressable.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the bit in the story where it says that some people don't even like repairing the batteries because some of it could catch fire. Well, not like petrol.
Yeah.
If flammability's your issue,
I have a lot of issues with electric cars, but that's not one of them. I'm going to leverage. I intend to pretend to be wanting to buy one soon, so that Brighton Council will let me have a driveway.
Whatever you do, don't say on telly. That'll ruin your plan.
They're very pro-electric cars. But there's about 18 driveways in Brighton, and so you just pot luck if you get home late at night if you're anywhere near a charging point. Otherwise, you've got a brick.
Well, yeah. What I've noticed is people are buying electric cars to sort of do something for the environment, but as an extra car.
Yeah.
So it's like you haven't really improved. If anything, you've done something worse. You're consuming your way out of a consumption problem.
This is exactly what Americans did when they were told to eat more carbs. They just ate more carbs on top of everything else that they were already eating.
Without dragging on too much, I always think about the electric car thing. 20 years ago, everyone would have guessed, I suppose the future will have electric cars.
Yeah.
And along that path, something happened where electric cars were linked to eco-ness.
Yeah.
And then people started hating them. Surely you presume in the future we're all flying, but at some point someone will say, I don't want to fly, it might be eco-friendly.
It's extraordinary how there's almost nothing that is not, divided along quite predictable tribal lines now. And yet, of course, Elon Musk, who is a kind of hero of the right and so on now, is also, the main force behind electric cars. So he is an interesting sort of, I don't know what you call it, an inflection point.
Well, funnily enough, laundry detergent, now all laundry detergent is pretty good for the environment compared to what it was, 30, 40 years ago. But the companies keep quiet about it because they don't want you to think it's better.
So dishwashers better for the environment than washing up by hand. It really does my head in that, and it really annoys me. I'm convinced it's destroying my family. But anyway, coming up after the break, how UN workers wind down and alien radio wind up and root people in the theatre round. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back one last time to Headliners. Times now. Leo, complaints from theatre staff that the customers are not always right or indeed fit for purpose.
So entitled theatre goers have apparently forgotten how to behave after COVID lockdowns. So there was a performance of Jersey Boys at the Edinburgh Playhouse and it had to be stopped after a fight broke out. I mean, that just sounds like every public event in Scotland, to be honest. Apparently it was filled with drunken and aggressive patrons, not parents, who vomit, they may have children, who vomit and physically assault staff, according to ushers on the front line. That's the state of modern theatres.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think the problem is these days the ushers are totally weak. They're effete milquetoasts who aren't up to the job.
But that's like most professions now, isn't it? From the police on down. I mean, there was a time when you had to be 6'2" and solid muscle to be an usherette, but
yeah. And also, you know, we used to price scumbags out of the theatre in those glorious days when I didn't have to go.
I took my son and a few friends to see Jersey Boys in London. Great show. It's the life and story of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. And there were loads of pensioners singing along and getting quite riotous. They only lived through it. And I don't remember it that well. I don't know if they were exactly that kind of band. But from what I understand, during the 50s and 60s, quite often, you know, those kind of bands saw a certain amount of disarray in the audience. Seats got slashed. You know,
it's authentic.
It's quite authentic response to the Jersey Boys story. They're just trying to kind of create the right context.
Do you think the title is the problem? That if it was called like the Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons story, you wouldn't get ruffians turning up, but it's called Jersey Boys. So they expect, you know, a bit of ruffians.
Well, they were like New Jersey. They're not from the French side of the English Channel.
No, I mean, I don't know if there's a lot of fighting there either. I suppose there was once, but yeah. I think there's a point there, though. I think people are just worse behaved these days, or I'm getting older.
I'll tell you what I think it is genuinely, and this is a cultural shift that's happened in my lifetime, is people get tanked up before they go out now, and especially to the theatre, because they know theatre bar prices are going to be high. Yeah, you've been expected to pay a lot to get in. You think, I'm going to get right. And naturally, you start getting bolshy as soon as an usher speaks to you like they would a 12-year-old child. You know? Anyway, more boffin news lined up for you now, Steve. This is from The Independent, and it seems we discovered a planet that might have intelligent life, and yet, oddly, they're failing to make contact with us.
Well, they're sending radio signals, coherent radio signals detected from this alien planet, which, I mean, again, it's one of those headlines where lower your expectation. The headline sounds like we found a planet and they're all local DJs.
Yeah.
Great song. Yeah, great song for Drax from Zargon. It's not that, it's radio. And by coherent, it doesn't mean it makes sense. It's just that all of the photons are aligned and they have the same phase.
So what they're basically saying is, it is potentially significant. It means they're surrounded by the kind of radio frequency protection that we are from the sun's rays, the solar rays, which would otherwise damage life and create cancers before we got started.
Yeah, it's saying that planet might have a magnetic field, and the movement of the magnetic field means we get the radio signals that are coherent. The magnetic field is the thing that protects the life, possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, good, but it's
not like Radio Delta. No.
There's not going to be competition for GB News on DAB.
Almost certainly not.
Right.
Although some people will no doubt try it out for a couple of to see how it goes. I hope they do find something. I suppose there could be millions of years during which life is developing on that planet before.
Yeah.
But the idea that they've picked up the planet's own magnetic radiation, but not any indication that there are people trying to reach us.
Yeah, not at all, yeah. It's not even saying that other planets weren't with magnetic fields, we just couldn't spot them. They probably do have.
Absolutely. Times now, Leo, and strict new guidelines appear to be in place at the UN on smoking meth and watching child porn.
Yeah, so they finally clamped down on it. So the United Nations allowed a youth worker to stay in his job, even though he had admitted to watching child abuse videos while taking crystal meth. Who does he think he is, a BBC DJ? This is incredible. And it's the second scandal for Winnie Byanyima, the UNAIDS executive director. So it was UNAIDS. It's not called UNAIDS because this guy has AIDS.
Although he does, in fact. He is HIV positive.
Oh, is he?
I looked him up.
Maybe that is why.
Eli Balan, he's quite an interesting character. He's been quite active on social media until about a year ago. It's interesting. I had a look. He's got his own Twitter account. And,
right.
He's active. Yeah, he is somebody his big thing was, I'm HIV positive and you can live with it. He looked very healthy and buff, and he was like an ambassador for that. So there is this kind of, weird crossover. And then he was on a podcast saying, I got into taking crystal meth at one time and it turned me into a nutcase. I became interested in child porn and stuff.
So he admitted all this stuff in a podcast?
Yeah, and that's where it came out. And I think in a way he probably thought it was a confession that was doing some good. He was going, kids, stay away from crystal meth. It made me into an evil, my head was full of really bad visions.
Don't kill people. I've got 13 people in my back garden. It's ruined my life. But yeah, so it's the second scandal for Winnie Byanyima. So she's the executive director of UNAIDS, and she was a senior official at Oxfam when the Times disclosed that the charity's workers were using prostitutes in Haiti and also abusing children there.
Yeah. She also is quite an impressive person in her own right. I think she's like an aviation specialist, and she's ridden through the ranks in Uganda and stuff. It must be quite difficult keeping an eye on everyone. I mean, I know the buck stops with her.
Send an email out.
I think
no crystal meth this week.
Or a sign. Surely in the kitchen there's a big sign. Is there a picture of meth with a line through it? Yeah.
I don't know. I do feel, as they have said, Oxfam has been courting a lot of disaster lately, hasn't it? Just by its kind of preachy tone. It just invites you to kind of go, well, let's have a look at your record.
They virtue signal at us, and then they abuse prostitutes themselves.
This next story in the Mail, Steve, I have to say, is one after my own heart.
Research says that women are interested in men who correctly pronounce their T's, which is why all women get turned on by Brian Sewell. Fact.
Brian
Sewell. Yeah, I don't know why I just did a Stewie from Family Guy impression, but it was close enough.
Brian Sewell, the art critic who died many years ago, he was good at his T's, wasn't he?
Every word was rather pronounced.
Wonderfully plummy, wasn't he? Yeah.
So they found 45 heterosexual women in their 20s, played them some sounds. They liked the blokes who could speak. That's this research, and it makes sense. I've pulled a lot of women by singing to them that I'm the very model of a modern Major General. Do the whole thing, and they love it.
There's not a single T in that, though.
No.
I'll tell you where I've noticed
there is about the cheerful fact about the hypotenuse.
There are a couple of vocalists who do emphasise their teeth. Steve Perry in Journey, their biggest hit, Don't Stop Believing. You know that one? Just small
where's
town
the
boy,
T?
born and raised in South Detroit. He really hits that T on that. Right. It always stands out. And I wonder whether he found that through random testing.
And I think it shows confidence. If you're confident enough to pronounce your T's, then it shows that you're not afraid of being a sort of tall poppy.
Yeah, that's true. And you are indeed a tall poppy. I've always said that. What do we have now? Finally, a mortified man in the mirror, Leo.
Yeah, so a mortified man has discovered he married his half-sister, but they're going to stay together. They don't care that much. So it says a man's life is in tatters after discovering he married his secret half-sister, only learning the truth about his family after his mum passed away. So she was a doctor. She apparently had a fling. She got pregnant with her father after spending the night with this guy, who she described as a tall son of a B word. It's not me, by the way. She never heard from or spoke to him again, and that's all they know. So he met this girl. He was 24, she was 19. She was waiting tables, and he kept going into the place. And
this is Don't Stop Believing again.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't say where it is. If it's in Norfolk, then what's the problem? This is just... In fact, she's probably got less DNA than the average. I'm joking. If anybody from Norfolk is
there was a great old joke. I can't remember who used to do it. Probably everyone on the circuit about the son who comes to his dad every time he's got a new girlfriend. Dad, I've got a new girlfriend. It's Jenny Richards from number 32. He goes, I'm sorry, son, but you can't go out with Jenny Richards from number 32. Why not? Well, when I was a young man, when I was dating your mother, I had a bike and I used to get around a bit, do you know what I mean? And implying that he's her dad. And he goes through about 4 or 5 girls and then eventually he goes to his mum and he goes, Mum, this is terrible. Every time I try and date a girl, Dad tells me that he had a bike when he was a young man. And she goes, you date who you want, love. He wasn't the only one who had a bike. Anyway, it's a nice story. It's a kind of completes the circle from where we started with Philip Schofield, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Brother denial.
And the bicycle was invented in Keir Mill, near where I grew up.
No.
And it actually allowed people to leave the valley. And that's why I've got enough fingers.
Fantastic. You were the Norman Tebbit of your generation. You didn't complain, you didn't riot. There are lots of great stories in literature about people marrying people that they don't know that they're related to, and it's always a deep and sort of primeval fear. But he seems to have just gone, oh well.
Doesn't make it right, though. I mean, I'm sure they've got a lot in common. You know, similar tastes, same nose, same grandparents.
Yeah.
These things, you know, lots to chat about.
Buying Christmas presents is cheaper as well.
100 years of solitude will take its toll sooner or later. The show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Tuesday's front pages. The Times. Almost half of voters say Starmer still lacks vision. Over half of voters, unaccountably, say otherwise. iPaper. UK summer holidays hit by passport delays after new strikes. Lovely, colourful Brazilian-themed cover there. The Guardian revealed CBI, that's the Business Institute, in turmoil following new claims of sexual misconduct, and a photograph of Donald Trump being arrested. Sun says, Phil Schofield, I no longer have a brother. The Daily Express, 42 years. Life for Olivia's life. And finally, the Daily Star, Queen's Corgis are no longer grieving. Those were your front pages. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests. We're back with the same panel tomorrow. Good night.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.